Hello everybody, this is Ominous for Responsible Gaming, doing episode 139 of Ominous Designs. This episode is called Yeslands because of a well-found pun, because you know you always have to put puns in your titles. I actually understand now why there's puns into titles, because titles are hard. So found stupid puns, and that works. Yesland is a pun on non-lands permanent. The trick here is we're gonna make Yesland permanents. We're gonna make lands, and we're gonna try and make lands that might also be creatures, but we're not gonna make manlands, which is what we call lands that can turn into men or creatures. We're gonna make lands that just happen to maybe somehow be a land. Will explain. Did I say land? Land, maybe creature, whatever. You understand. You understand, I say. So let's see. I'm gonna take. We are indeed online. I don't know why Twitch is always showing me offline. It's just kind of clicks to talk. Huh? Okay, whatever. I'm discovering Twitch. Barnyard Valley is the card that I just copied. So my idea, but I haven't fully formed the template for it. My idea of this land would be something of the sort. This land, I think, would enter play tapped. There's the battlefield tapped. And let's say we're going to attempt to make a 2/2 that when it is a creature gets casted for 1 and a green. Let's see if we can have, yeah, like that. I do like that a lot. Okay, we're gonna make this potentially uncommon, I'm not sure. And it's gonna add green. Oh, we can just do cap G. Okay. So it gets something like that, but we're going to need an ability to distinguish it from a creature in land. And hello, what is that? Oh, it's a bot. That's no, wait. What is going on here? Is we? Oh, it's my description, is it? Hello, Amigon. I thought you were a butt. You're not a butt, are you? Promise me. So it's Amigon. It's not Amigon. Sounded like Amiga to me. Anyways, so yeah, we hope to make a card that can either be a land or a creature. In my mind, something that could either be a tapped forest, even though it's not actually a forest, and a 2/2 is not busted. It would be extremely flexible, but it doesn't have to be busted. Potentially, it would cost 3, for example. And to demonstrate that, I base myself on mostly 2 things. One of them is, and I have a couple searches here, one of them is the Gempom Strider over here is a 2/2 for 2 that has cycling. The cycling is kind of expensive, but it also gives +2/+2 to elf creatures, which is like a mini overrun, so it's super powerful. So it's not exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at not cycling, but having a land. And the reason why I was looking at cycling is because I was thinking land cycling. So second search over here, and over here you have, oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. Let's say 6. So over here you have creatures that have land cycling, and land cycling just says, instead of having your creature that's here, you're gonna pay 2 colorless and you're gonna get your land, which is like, it's a fetch land, so it's not the same as being a land, but it's getting there. And one thing you can see on those is that they never made them under 6 mana. So they never made them under 6 mana, which means that they forced the choice to be you want a late game creature or you want basically a fetch land, which is supposed to say virtually get a land, except it costs you a tiny bit of mana. Well, on my gun, I'm creating a couple custom cards for Magic the Gathering. If you check out the previous episodes, we have a whole host of cards. It's been 150 episodes, and we're gonna make a couple more tonight. So hopefully they'll be interesting, and tell me if you have any feedback as we go along for sure. So yeah, so I do believe yeah, the land cycling cards are forcing you to switch between a high converted mana cost big creature and an early play to get land instead, which, like I said, is not exactly having your land right off the bat, but still it's gonna cost you like a turn 2 or whatever, but it's still, the idea is you can have either a land or a creature. So I think forcing you, quote unquote, forcing you to choose between an actual land and an early creature is removing a tiny bit from the power, because it used to be that early you get your land, late you get your big creature, and you have lots of mana to pay for it, which would just cover every phase of the game and would be good all the time. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically create cards that are somewhat good, but in the early game only for the both of them. Basically, a land that comes into play tapped is actually not a fantastic land. I mean, it's like a downside, obviously, and it is useful at the beginning of the game. Late in the game, it doesn't really do very much. A 2/2 is also good at the beginning of the game. So the versatility, though, is excellent, right? We don't even know how to handle those. I think this is a mechanic that would need a lot of playtesting for us to know exactly how good it is. It's kind of like Morph. It's kind of like, any other mana sink or etc. The versatility of being able to put a creature in your land slot is very good, but how bad can you make the land and the creature slot so that it's kind of balanced, right? Honestly, the thing is, I don't even know how fantastic this would be. This is definitely very cool. It can either be a 2/2 for 2, or it can be a tapped land, and that sounds amazing. But how ridiculous is it really? Especially if I was to put it in the common slot, the uncommon slot, it wouldn't be flooding either, and you would just get a fantastic slot. Like you would get, it's kind of like when you get free mana fix, it's kind of virtually an extra land offered to you. But on the other hand, is bloody 2/2 for 2. We don't love those all that much anymore. So basically, what I'm fighting here is the gut feeling that it's amazing to have a land that's a creature, and I'm trying to balance that with what I actually really think we can get away with. So like I said, 2/2 for 2 needs an upside usually nowadays, especially in green. Land then coming to play tapped definitely needs an upside, because obvious. So I'm gonna pretend this is possible as it is, because I like it better than, say, what I would do if it was a common. I would do this. I think I would do command 2/2 for 3, and kind of sucks. I love the idea that we could push the concept so that it always even shows at common, but I don't think I would do that for the 2/2. I think the 2/2 is, the 2/2 for 2, they can be a land, I think is pretty cool as it is. That being said, we also need to make the mechanic work, and I think that's quite a bit more complicated. basically I don't want my card to be a land creature such as Dryad Arbor. Dryad Arbor, you should know this one. It's the one creature land. So it's a land creature, it's a forest dryad, and which is super cool actually. I never really looked at that. Land creature, forest dryad, and so it's actually a forest. It's not a basic land, but you can fetch it when you fetch a forest and when you fetch a green creature. And it's a land that has summoning sickness. It's a mess, but it's really cool. But it's 2 things at a time. I was more hoping I could do something along the line of gods. Gods basically aren't creature unless they are creature. Keranos over here says, as long as your devotion to blue and red is less than 7, Keranos isn't a creature. So I think I would do something like that. Now, how? And it's definitely a tricky one. We could play with Awaken, I suppose. Oh, whoa. Can we actually straight up use Awaken here? I mean, I actually don't particularly want to, but I wonder if it just doesn't just apply. So Awaken says if you cast this spell for blah, so we can maybe tweak that. Also put 4 1/1 counters on target land you control and it becomes 0 on target creature with haste. It's still a land. See, the problem is, I mean, I can always change. I can always copy Awaken and make it something different, but very, very similar to this. I might do that. That seems acceptable. So let's say I do something of the sort. How does it work? See, that the enter the battlefield tapped is going to be tricky too. Awaken 2, it's not going to be Awaken, but 1 and a green. Okay. I'm going to remove this, and so basically, oh yeah, this is, I need to remove the reminder because I'm going to edit it. If you get this spell for also put 2 some percent counters on it. Guess cast this card. I don't think you cast cards, but I don't know. I'll think about that too. And it becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. I don't believe so. And it wouldn't be a land anymore. And it becomes and loses all of the types or something like this. Yeah. So now there's one more problem is I don't want it to be tapped. I mean, what we could do is when one enters the battlefield, if you haven't, no, putting god. If you haven't paid, it's whatever cost. God, it's annoying. I wanted to make it gain this. Gains that. It's pretty complex. The other thing we could do is we could do that. Add to your mana pool if there aren't any +1/+1 counters on this. Whatever. Oh god. And you would say Bunyard Valley enters the battlefield tapped. Unless something like that. It's not the best. It's not the best. So that's gonna be the trick. The whole trick tonight is gonna be to find a template that's acceptable for this ability. And then other cards are not gonna be as big a deal to kind of create. I mean, in fact, if you think this is a fine mechanic, you can create a dozen creatures in a blank. So what's the best? I don't love this one. So it is a land in your actually this makes fetch land a little powerful, isn't it? Because you could transform a fetch land into a fetch creature. So it would only be acceptable if you, I mean, you could open a pretty sweet deck building space if you try and make it so that they're not too abusable. Being able to fetch a 2/2 for 2 with a fetch land is not quite broken yet, I don't think. If you had a ton of those in your deck, maybe. And even then. So it's a land, so you can only put it in the battlefield, and somehow you cannot transform it into a creature, which is good because it's not abusable. It can only be a creature if you used its ability over here, which is pretty important. If there aren't any. The other possibility would be to allow this land to enter the battlefield untapped. No, that's not a possibility. Then that would be better than a basic land. So never mind. Yeah, I don't know. This might be a thing. The problem is you need three things. You need a land. You need your ability to decide whether you're gonna get a creature or land. You need to tap the card if it's a land, and you need to give it an ability if it's a land, which also is gonna make it pretty hard to create creatures that are not vanilla creatures, because I can always see coming that I'm probably gonna try and make the blue flyer next, and it is also going to have to say it probably is gonna have to say that it has flying only if it is not if it's a creature, if it has a personal encounter on it, or etc, etc. I want to see something with the gods. Well, I'm like kind of jumping ahead of myself right now, but I wanted to see if any of them had other abilities. Not gods, god. If they had any other ability other than being indestructible, which turns out applies to both, to any permanent. So it doesn't matter that it's an enchantment that's indestructible or a creature god that is indestructible, which is smart. They did not give them any sort of ability like trample, first strike, flying, which to me shows that they didn't want to see those things printed on an enchant, potentially. Though it's the kind of thing that I think would be kind of counterintuitive, but would not or weird, but definitely not counterintuitive, because nobody expects an enchant with first strike to do anything unless it's a creature. Yeah, so let's just juggle around with a couple IDs, and if we don't find any better, we'll move on to the next card. So our ability turns it into a creature. The opposite would be an ability that turns it into a land, which means that by default it would be a creature, which would be cool on the face of it, because I like to see a land that has a power and toughness, but it would be well, I guess it's not the worst. I was gonna say it would be counterintuitive, because he would have power toughness and yet wouldn't be a creature, except that's exactly what's happening to our gods over here. And the other problem is that you would still probably need counter, because those gods, they always check for something to be happening, right? But what we want is a card that you can decide to be one or the other, which means that you're going to decide it when you cast it, and you could say, oh well, now it's a creature, and that would be legal within the rules, but it would suck in terms of memory. You need to be this on the battlefield and be very clear that it's a creature or not. So I mean, there's rules within that could say, okay guys, don't put this land with your lands. If it's a creature right now, put it with your creatures. That could be some sort of a tournament rules or fair play rules or whatnot. But I still think you wouldn't want to play with that. You wouldn't want to play with a land that's a creature without putting counters on it, which is also why Weekend says turn it into a 0/0 and put counter on it. It gets some interaction, but mostly it is so that you can see counters on the land and know that it's a creature. Whew. So, all that to say that if I was doing the other way around, I would do something like Landify, and Landify would say, if you cast it for its Landify cost, put a counter on it, and put it on the battlefield tapped. So it would say something like this. Might actually be kind of cool. Because I'm getting rid of an ability here, Landify. So it's got Landify, and that means if you blah blah blah, you can put this on the battlefield. You can put this. Oh god. you can play this card anytime you could play a land, maybe. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped with a land counter on it. So specific counters are a thing of the past. They don't really exist anymore for the reason, the main reason that we want +1% counters, and we cannot really tell a whatever counter from a +1 counter. I think that's one of the main reasons. And the other fact that if you have an H counter and a whatever counter and another whatever counter, you cannot really tell one from another. It becomes a little bit of a mess. That's part of the New World Order. But that's how it would work. So add green to your mana pool. That is... if there is a counter, then if there is a land counter and Boneyard Valley and Boneyard Valley isn't a creature as long as there is a land counter on it. So that would be the other way to do it. That would be defaulting to a creature, and but that the problem is I didn't address the no, I guess both are printed land creature. Let's say it's a dryad, whatever. And so I print both, and I say it's not a creature anymore because you decided to play it with Landify. It's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a mess, especially because I'm not sure that this is a thing. You can play this card anytime you could play a land card. Yeah, I mean, I guess it sort of makes sense, sort of. How can you abuse this? Now you can fetch a land and fetch a creature and get whatever you want, which sounds fine. I do love that we added the enter the battlefield tapped inside another kind of explainer for the ability. That being said, we had to create another one over here. So yeah, the problem is, like, it would be super red flagged. Like they've done things like this, right? The gods only say, "Oh, I'm not a god anymore." What else? And we just established that you can say this now has this ability and have no counter on and be fine with it. So I could, if I really wanted. No, actually I couldn't really. This I need the counter for the ability, because I can't really just say it gains whatever ability in there. But this I could remove. I could say, like, if you put a land counter on it, and loses. I don't, and isn't a creature anymore, or I don't know. There is a bunch of things that I don't love about this. One is, what exactly happens if you blink this? Now all of a sudden it's a land creature. There is no land counter on it, so it becomes both a land and a creature, which I think actually is fine because it looks like a dryad. So that sounds fine. I guess the main issue is that we removed the creature type inside the reminder, which is, I guess, actually, if you say that this is the mechanic for the set, people know that if there's a counter on this guy, it's not a creature. If and they can use it for mana, and if they're the counter, it's a land counter. So if there's a counter, it's a land, and you cannot use it as a creature. If there's no counter, that means you cannot use it as a land. It's a creature. Blech. It's messy. It's messy. That being said, you can also say Landify 2. No. Yeah, right. You could also add a cost to this, I suppose. No, that's kind of lame. You don't want to pay for your Landify. So let's try and see just quickly, because this is probably not acceptable and too complex, but let's read it and pretend we don't know about the ability and see if it kind of sort of makes sense. So we get a land creature over here. That's a 2/2 for 2, obviously, and it says add green to your mana pool if there is a land counter on Boneyard Valley. So you're like, oh man, I need a land counter now. How do I get a land counter? There's a Landify ability here. You can play this card anytime you would play a land card. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped with a land counter on it and isn't a creature anymore. It is not simple, but it is actually still self-explanatory, I guess. I made it so that it doesn't have to have 3 or 4 different lines of explanation and is potentially acceptable in terms of complexity and memory issues. It is very well possibly not acceptable, but it might be. And as far as breaking it, you can fetch it. If you fetch it and put it into play, you won't have a... Oh, that sucks. If you fetch a land and put it into play, all of a sudden you put a 2/2 into play, which is not cool. That's unfortunate. You need the counter in order to be a creature, I think. Yeah, because you don't want things that put lands into play. Granted that there's not that many that put non-basic lands into play, which potentially is an excuse for it actually. But probably you don't want something that is able to fetch a land that go fetch a creature and put it right into play instead. That sounds super rough. That being said, like I said, the things that are fetching a land that is non-basic usually are very good. Usually it's on rares or on excellent fetches. That being said, it is still too good if I want to make a 3/3 flyer or anything else land creature. Like, there's no way I would tolerate that even a good creature like a Primeval Titan can just straight up go fetch a 3/3 flyer. That sounds not acceptable at all. So that's pretty sad. Now, can I just Creaturify instead? So Creaturify says Creaturify. So Creaturify would be 1 and a green, and it would be probably like a 2, and we're back to the previous thing. So with the previous thing, I could instead say, if I want to, and it becomes a 0 like creature and lose all the types. Yeah, okay, so I did do that. I did make it be I have the type inside the reminder already, and it enters the battlefield tapped if you have paid. Unless you have paid, it's whatever cost, which is the Creaturify cost. Okay, whatever. I was pretty excited for a second about the Landify ability, but the fact that you can just straight up fetch a creature with a fetch land and put it into play, not good at all. Very sad. Alright, I don't know, if I have infinite time, or if people come with the good ideas about making this clearer, I will gladly reevaluate. But right now we're gonna try and make a flyer instead, and honestly that's gonna be very easy, very cheaty. Let's say, I don't know, how much can I push this? I kind of want it to be fat, just so that we can play with like what is a very expensive flyer we can have. What is going on here? Not green. Oh god. Okay. So you would have something like, this is not a weekend, huh? Just so you remember. Oh yeah, it does the counters. So maybe it's a 3/3 flyer for 5. How's that? So this, oh yeah, this version doesn't have power and toughness, huh? Which is kind of a bummer, because that's also one of the things that you gain from making such a mechanic, is the coolness of having a land with power and toughness. To me, you could think it's a tiny downside, and I think it's a big one. I think the cool factor of land with power and toughness is very important. Oh, and also, oh yeah, and also it's just a special land. It doesn't even have a casting cost anymore. Sad, very sad. So yeah, so it would be something like 4 in a blue. I'm not sure if that's the exact cost, but it would be a 3/3, and Boyard Valley enters the battlefield tapped, and then you have paid its whatever cost. Now, question: do we want to play with giving a land flying? Because I could just do that. I don't remember if flying comes before until the battlefield tapped or not. It could be a flying land. Actually, it's a good question. I don't know if it's within the rules to be a flying land. If you give flying to a creature, something that's temporarily a creature, but is actually a land, does it keep flying? I guess not, but I would love to know it for sure. Otherwise, I need to just do whatever has flying, as long as it is a creature. Which is fine, but we're already lamenting that we couldn't, and I think I prefer it there. We're already lamenting the fact that we couldn't have a just a 1 line or 2 lines reminder. Now we have basically four references to the ability, and that's kind of sad. It's pretty sad. Yeah, I'm just a little disappointed. Also, as the hilarious weird effect that if you manage to put +1 counters on Boneyard Valley, it just stops making mana, which shouldn't really happen unless you turn it into a creature. Actually, it should be pretty darn hard to put counters on it unless you turn it into a creature, but I don't know if you were doing that temporarily or through whatever way. I guess it's not very relevant. No, I guess the bummer is just the 4 lines of text. I'm gonna keep it as that though, because it's been 40 minutes, but I'm gonna give it a couple more thoughts, see if I can wipe up the absolute ultimate perfect version of this mechanic for tomorrow, when I will be posting the article. Yeah, let's keep it as that for now. I think that's enough head scratching for now, and I do need to eat. Awesome. So yeah, I threw myself into this enterprise thinking we'll find an acceptable solution. Turns out it's gonna take more than an hour to find one that's not overly complex, but I really hope there is a way to make this a thing, because how is that not awesome, right? So yeah, I'll do some more work, and you'll see tomorrow in the article. See what we found. I'm gonna show you a little bonus. There you go. I had prepared that, even though we are taking a long time. That's your reward. Granted that you care. Look at this. Xbox One, free plug, made a create your custom controller kind of thing that you should check out. And I made a one with the responsible gaming colors of a logo. I think it's very cute. If it wasn't so expensive, I would probably consider it, because I like those controllers as well. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. So this time it is actually it for today. Do check out the article tomorrow that's gonna be published. You see all the links over here on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. We'll have this video, and the Reddit Custom Magic, which is an awesome Reddit that you should check out if you're interested in custom magic designs. This is all for this episode. I will see you next time for episode 140. That is a lot of episodes. I hope you enjoyed. This has been Ominous for Responsible Gaming, and I'll see you next week. Play responsibly.